record this. Got it.
Okay, so we have no alternate to see, or.
Yeah, we
are
have
you an
Larry.
alternate? You and Larry are alternates.
I'm an alternate.
Okay, okay. I think
Mhm.
you guys have common faces.
Let me
Okay,
just see.
so
So
we're
we
gonna
have,
see, we'll see, Larry for Vera
mhm.
and you for,
Justin.
who else is missing? Justin. Okay, and if Vera shows up, Larry, I'll bump you out.
Okay.
You're not offended, right? Okay.
So we have
You're okay with that?
7 seated. Yeah, 7.
So. 6, 7 seated, because Thomas.
Yeah,
is
Tom.
in
Mhm.
there. There's no changes to the agenda. The minutes of April 10th, 2023, I'll make a motion, we accept them as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? Unanimous? Against?
I wasn't,
So you're gonna abstain?
I was at the last meeting, but I wasn't seated, so what does that mean? You don't vote.
You don't vote?
Yeah.
And you abstain
I was
too.
there,
So,
not seated.
Tom, are you approving?
Yes.
So that's 5 yes, 0 no, and 2 abstentions.
Yeah.
Audience of citizens?
Excuse me, before you move on, just a comment. I thought the minutes were very well done. Thank you. very much.
Appreciate
It was
that.
a
I do
very
appreciate
long,
it.
Arduous, tedious, whatever meeting, but I think you captured the essence of it very well. Thank you very much.
I'll
We have-
ditto.
we have
I really
time
appreciate the
over
work.
to have some general conversation about the way that went. It was a really hard thing for us to communicate among ourselves with so much going on. I wanna-
Let's
could-
talk an open discussion about
Yeah,
that. Okay?
Item 10. I
Let's
would
bring it up.
think.
Yeah.
Closed session or after?
Pardon me?
Closed session or after?
Either one. Okay.
We can read your lips on
And nothing under unfinished business, new business. We have the application of Jacob Tillo, high-class detailing intent, site plan and sign applications for auto detailing, tinting, audio and lighting installed at 231 Route 6, Unit C. The applicant's not here to speak to that. John, are you familiar with this application?
Yeah, I have had many conversations with Jake over the last couple of weeks in trying to explain the process to him, as had Isabel and Connie in the land use office and folks from Eastern Heights and the health district. So this gentleman, and he, this is a site plan application without really much of a site plan, but it's fundamentally a change of use for the existing facility, actually one component of 231 Route 6, which is, sort of a historic, multi-business, automotive, repair. It's had a number of uses. And what Jake proposes to do, called high-class detailing, is to basically do some custom, post-factory upgrades to vehicles, some custom tinting, window tinting, detailing, radios, lighting, on existing vehicles. So just some minor alterations. And he proposes to do this inside the existing building and on the existing lot with no changes proposed to any structures, any parking or circulation, or any of the other, sort of exterior functional details of the site. So it's basically, commercial use to commercial use. What we did have some concerns about, if he was washing vehicles or, using liquid or chemicals. He did put that in the narrative, that he is going to be using, and I'm trying to remember if he actually put the detail of the material. He's using basically a rubberized mat that the vehicles will, so once you do some detailing, some custom tinting and some decals, there's a cursory wash of the car, not like a full car wash level of volume, but they do wash down the car. To deal with that, he's proposing to basically have the vehicle on a rubberized mat with a high lip around it. So think of it as like basically a large kiddie pool for a car. Now they'll be capturing the wash water in that kiddie pool, essentially, vacuuming it out into a shop vac and keeping it in a 55-gallon drum, which he will then transport to Willimantic WPCA to dispose. It was determined by DEP that handles auto dealerships or auto dealerships and things like that, and car washes, that this was a small enough operation that it did not fall under DEP's jurisdiction. And for Eastern Highlands, they said as long as because they're not draining anything on site, they're not putting anything into the septic system, as long as the wash water was contained to a 55-gallon drum and a WPCA, and Willimantic was okay with taking it, then Eastern Highlands was okay with it also. And so what Jake did was he got approval from WPCA in Willimantic. They're okay with taking it, and so Eastern Highlands is okay with taking it with this method of retaining the water. And so that's what they'll do. The only those liquids like that will be contained into this automotive kiddie pool and then transported to Willimantic WPCA.
So we're talking very low volumes of water if it's a 55-gallon tank. Why can't it just go into the septic system? Is the groundwater?
Yeah, I don't know. I think WPC or Eastern Highlands didn't go through the full analysis of what chemicals that would be, and Jake, the owner, the proposed tenant, did not want to do sort of an analysis of all the chemicals and the whatnot into the septic system. So this was his solution was I'm just not going to bother with any sort of septic system or drainage upgrades. We'll just capture it and bring it to Willimantic. Was his solution.
Okay. 55 gallons. How many cars can you wash with 55 gallons of water? 2?
Well, you get your detailed cars can be there all day. They're not going to be washed. Not like
It's
a car wash.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the work they're doing. I'm sorry.
Are you comfortable with your review of it, John?
Yeah, I mean it's obviously not a sort of a high level of civil engineering analysis, but I am comfortable that they are just doing work inside an existing building, not making any site changes. Obviously they're going to swap out a sign, their the business sign, but it will function from a traffic and land use perspective basically as its function. My really only concern was that that wastewater thing. I don't want him pouring stuff down the drain, and so as long as they have this method and Willimantic WPCA and Eastern Highlands are okay with this approach, I don't have any concern.
Not really a zoning issue.
Well, Tabor, my concern isn't so much that it goes down the septic system because there's a renovation, holding and renovation or whatever, but when a client, when a tenant is got to dispose of some sort of waste and they got to pay the WPCA or whoever it is for the disposal and they have to go for the moving of it, whatever. My concern is that it ends up in a river or it ends up dumped somewhere that's cheaper, easier, whatever. Who polices the permit? Who polices the connection between that water and going into the 55-gallon drum and it gets to the...
Well, so that would be that would be zoning and wetlands essentially. And I mean, this is wetlands would patrol the river, see if there's any chemicals being dumped in there. But I mean, it's this is the proposal he's put forward. It's one of those things that it's in writing, it's on paper that this is what they are going to do. He's across the street from a large car dealership. You know, who's to say that the car dealership, and I'm not impugning anybody, is that the car dealership isn't just dumping their wastewater or their, you know, the waste oil down the drain also. At some point, you sort of have to, you know, take people at their word in their application that these are the systems they're going to put in place, and then be ready to act if someone, you know, is acting in bad faith or is trying to cut corners. But they have put in place this system, and putting it in writing, saying they'll capture it in the drum and bring it to Willimantic. That's
We
their business
we know
operation.
that, John, we know that that system actually is a real system, because I can't imagine somebody being able to drive into the facility in Willimantic with a 55-gallon drum in their pickup and dump it. And we know that they let people, that is, my understanding is they have to actually go there and have a license to dispose of there. And,
Yeah, so
that's 55, that's tanks, that's.
my sense is this would probably be you know, not a traditional 55-gallon drum, but it would be, you know, some sort of plastic tank that you'd have in the back of a pickup truck, essentially. You know, I'm thinking more like when you're collecting maple syrup, you know, that sort of plastic container that you could put in the back of a truck, would be my, you know, I think we could probably ask for a little bit more detail on that. He did send me, and I didn't make it into the application, he did send me information about the thing that I'm describing as the kiddie pool. He sent me the specifications for that. So we could, you know, request more specifications for the type of holding tank or container.
Yeah, excuse me, John, didn't you say that Eastern Highlands has signed off on this?
Yes, again, assuming, and that letter is in the packet, that he's saying, well, here, I'll put it on the screen if you want.
Well, again, have these questions been asked of Eastern Highlands? And if so,
yeah,
I mean, they're the experts at this, so I think we have to go along with what they say.
So he's saying, right, you know, well, what Eastern Highlands is basically saying, and if the letter is up on the screen, it's basically saying water from auto detailing cannot discharge into the ground or be disposed of into the on-site septic system. Per the applicant, a contract will be secured to dispose of the auto washing waste with Town of Wyndham WPCA. So they're basically saying, you know, as long as it's not going in the ground and it's being taken to WPCA, they're okay with it, and that is the approval. This says, you know, Eastern Highlands has reviewed and signed off. And again, just like I said, it's essentially contingent on the applicant doing what they say they'll do.
So the jurisdiction falls under the Eastern Highlands. That's not anything that, I guess, aside from us purviewing it, it's really up to Eastern Highlands.
I think if he dumps it on the ground, it's the wetlands, and if it's in the ground, it's Eastern Highlands. And I don't think it's up to us to impose concerns about what goes into the ground, although I have concerns. I'm just telling you, you know, if you want, I'm assuming that this is just going to end up in the septic system.
You know, but the only thing I think you want to do is request a list of their materials and keep it on file. If something shows up, you'll have the chemical breakdown. That's all.
ZDO's got to go and check it out.
Yeah, we don't have really the capacity to enforce that. It would be nice just for them for the first 6 months to just send a record of the pumping and disposal of the liquids. If we wanted to impose something that is really rather benign and just shows a pattern of them actually contracting with somebody to get rid of it.
I think certainly would.
That's something we've in this process in working with the applicant and sort of going around and round with DEP and Eastern Highlands and Willimantic WPCA. We started sort of an email chain about let's keep each other in the loop, and so it would be very easy just to be in touch with WPCA and ask them to report back to us, you know, after a couple of months.
You know, maybe we don't need to do it as part of our approval because it isn't within the realm of our purview. But if we could just ask you to follow up with EPA and ask them to follow up to make sure it's being taken off site. Because if there's no record of any disposal of this off site, we'll know that
20 barrels out in the backyard somewhere.
I think we're going to find that
Yeah.
that volume of disposed water is below any jurisdiction even that the DEP has. Because they work on like 10,000 gallons per day or something.
Also the type of chemical raises
That's why I think it works.
It could be acetone.
So,
I asked them, they would probably use get rid of the, so it'll be only a
no
rest.
concern, that's all.
It's not gonna be important.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm putting ticklers in my calendar to check in the next couple of months with Willimantic WPCA.
Is everyone comfortable if we're gonna approve this to just let John follow up on it? Yeah. I am too, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Just for the record, receiving Vera in lieu of John. Larry.
Larry, good. John, just a couple of
I know
other
you by
questions.
both names.
Because there was no survey submitted on this project, no site plan, the two photographs that show the site and show the parking, I have no idea where these are on the site or where the sign's gonna be. It's like Photoshopped photos, but I mean, there's multiple tenants on this property, right?
I'm drawing of the building somewhere. Email that.
But I don't even know where it is on the site. I mean,
There was one here that was an aerial photo.
yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Where's the building?
There's a drawing.
Just the building here?
That's the building.
That's it right there. Three bays.
Not that.
It's this one right here.
No, that's a parking space.
Oh, there's the 3 bays, and that's,
This is a parking area. This is a parking area. And those are 3 bays. And I'm not sure, maybe it's in this, see the 50 by 50 area where we utilize the parking. I have no idea where this goes on the site, John. Do you?
Let me make sure that we're on the same page here.
Pardon me?
So you're looking at this.
Yeah, I'm looking at those 2 photographs. I'm looking at that one. If you read the narrative, maybe the 50 by 50 is a building and not a parking area. Maybe it's missing.
Yeah, so that appears to be rotated. Yeah, that's
And I don't know what this is.
this is the building. So I'm looking at, okay, so I'm looking at, yeah, it's this is the site from Google Earth or Google Maps.
Okay.
This is the building where the operation will be taking place for the most part. Those are the bays, I believe. So here's that same picture. And
Wouldn't it
then-
be helpful if we had even a hand-drawn sketch of the site? And the
Yes.
label, showing where the proposed signs are gonna be, where the parking's gonna be, which part of the building they're using? I mean, it's not that difficult to do it. Doesn't have to be an A2 survey, it's something that shows the site. And then we can hold them to it.
Yeah. So we can, well, yeah.
And it is one of the requirements of submission, right? Some
Sure.
kind of a survey.
Well, yeah, I mean, and in its case, it's traditionally, yes, a survey would be needed as part of the site plan. In this case, no site changes are being proposed. It's just, where things are going to be parked outside buildings and where things are going to be used inside buildings without structural changes to either. So that, it's really the level of detail that you guys need to determine whether you have enough information to answer the questions. And yeah, that map could be clearer.
I mean, another thing, for example, is the sign that's on the road. There's one in the photograph that's got a square around it, and then there's a line with a circle towards another one. So which one are we talking about? It's just not very clear, John.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree that this is a little less than like fully
A hand drawing that's traced over a Google Maps or something like that would be good, because then at least we would know where we're talking about these items.
Sure. No, I'm in agreement.
The other thing was, with regard to the sign, he has a general description. I would add to I think he's meant sign, not to exceed 15 feet in height and to have a total area of 65 square feet. That's not, I'd like to see exactly what he meant. This just says,
Who's going to be?
he'll meet the requirements, but
Yeah.
it doesn't really give us enough to evaluate anything.
Okay.
And there's
So
a
we-
stick in the ground sign there, that I think is a stick in the ground sign, and maybe it's a permanent sign.
I think that's the police sign. It's out there.
Okay. So, just, if you could, why don't we hold off on approving this until we get just some more detail of the site plan? I'd love to approve this tonight for him.
Yeah.
But it really is lacking that, and to know exactly what he proposes for any signs, if they're new. If he's just changing the verbiage on an existing sign, that we don't even have to review that. That's none of our business. So if he's putting a new sign in the ground, I'd really like to know what he's gonna put in the ground and how big it is, just so we can evaluate it.
Okay. I can work with him this week and get that revised for you.
Just so indicate, we'd like to see, some site plan. And I know this site, I think I've seen surveys of this site in the past for other applications going way back. So you can probably have a survey, you can print a copy out of, from our land records. And if
Yeah,
you
I
don't,
looked in the land records the other day, and it's not as clear as you. I think it's some buildings proposed that I think were never actually built. So the surveys or the
Okay.
site plans that reflect not the existing conditions. But yeah, we'll get something together.
in Bob's suggestion that he draw something maybe from our GIS system, and then.
Well, that was the suggestion initially, and this is what we got. So yeah.
It would be much easier to evaluate, but tell him we look favorably on it to this point. We just need a little more info.
Okay,
Okay?
I can do that.
And thank him for the application. So we're gonna, continue evaluation of this application to our next meeting, which is
May 22nd.
May 22nd, 2023.
Okay.
That's a motion. Everyone,
I second.
second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone against?
I'm just gonna
Abstention.
abstain because I wasn't here for the total testimony.
Okay, Vera's abstaining. She was seated to replace Larry. Sorry for calling you John.
I'm gonna call horse.
I think we all have.
So next item is regulation revisions. Justin is not here. We only made light progress, and as a standard for just an FYI, as a standard for a subcommittee that meets on both section 3 and the subdivision regs. We love you, Josh, but we don't need to have you there for minutes. We're going to take our own minutes and submit them, but we will notice the meetings so that they can go out with a packet. So if the public wants to attend, they can be part of it.
So, and following that up, Mr. Chair, I did sit down with Justin last week to talk through some of the ideas and concepts you guys were working on. And I will have, probably for your next meeting, for the May 22nd meeting, a draft of some revised structure definitions.
Okay.
Go from there.
So yeah, I won't even get into any of the detail until we have all that information and we have Justin here. It would be up to him to report because he's the chair of the subcommittee. Under communication reports, anything? Nothing?
I have nothing.
Open discussion. Nothing really to discuss, other than I will say that our approval of the wedding venue has been appealed. And John, can you just, for the record, the people who are the main parties in the appeal, was it O'Connor?
Just Connors, I think.
Connors.
Yeah. I can.
And no, I don't think we
Connors.
should discuss it unless we're in
Okay.
executive session. I don't think we need to be in executive session. They are appealing the decision.
I'll just note that the next meeting on the 22nd was also originally supposed to have a
Oh, right.
public hearing on the application to repeal the regulation 52.7.5. And we did hear last week that those applicants have chosen to withdraw that application until we find out how the appeal goes. So,
Okay.
So
there will,
for the record, the appellants are Heather Jordan, Joseph Connors, and Holly Wells.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so, if we do need to discuss this, I will, put on the agenda an executive session, but we don't need to discuss it. I just wanted you to be aware that there was an appeal
Mhm.
that started and the process has started. And if that other application has been withdrawn, our schedule eases up dramatically. So,
Yeah.
any, audience of citizens, do we have any members of the public here?
We had one and I think they left.
Okay, nothing under executive session. I'll make a motion that we adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Vera is still the champion.
I'm